They turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Actually, I guess a week since I've done one of these Skraby shows, or Skraby Chronicles, whatever you want to call it. I am happy to be back. I am a creature of habits, and the Padres and their trip this week really threw me out of my rhythm, and so it's been kind of weird. That's something that you may not know about me, is I like to have the same thing, or I like to have a plan every single day. So it's been a little weird the last couple days. I'm happy that everybody is joining me here tonight. We are going to talk about the Padres, obviously, because the Padres are doing some good things right now. We're also going to get a visit from Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network. He is the show directly after this show, so anytime the station has, nothing required to play, like the Padres or the NFL, at 7 p.m., Bart Winkler's show takes over on the station. So we will get a visit from him. We'll talk a little bit about why he hates Brock Purdy so much, and we'll get his opinion on the national sports talk show host and whether or not it's acceptable for them to talk about their fandom, their personal fandom. So I'm very excited to be back. Let's go and see who's in the chat right now. Castro's here, Gonzo's here, Anthony is here, other Anthony is here. I already said Gonzo. You get shout out twice. Katie and McKee, Dominic, Patrick and Annie, Katrina, Annabelle. Thank you all for joining me here today. All right, so I think the Padres are showing me more and more how this is not going to be last year, and I don't really want to even spend much time on how we think it's going to be last year. And, after the Rocky series where they got swept, it definitely felt really terrible. It felt like something that shouldn't have happened. It felt like, not rock bottom, but it felt pretty low getting swept by the Rockies, especially after taking and building momentum, taking 2 of 3 from the Dodgers or the previous weekend. But I feel like this team is showing us that it's going to get better as the year goes along. And these last few games have kind of showed it for me. I'm going to throw out Tuesday, and as Chris said, that was a whole, that's an excuse for them to throw out Tuesday. But they play 2 games on Monday, fly a red-eye to Cincinnati, and then they have to play another game on Tuesday. I know other teams have to do it, but they had to play 3 games basically in 24 hours, which I'm willing to look the other way on Tuesday for that. And yes, Chris said that's an excuse. And it is an excuse, but it is a legit excuse, I think. I don't know how I can go about it without actually thinking these guys are human. They do have the same human body. Well, not the same human body that we do, but they do have, they get tired as well. They get jet lagged as well. And so sometimes they're going to come out a little bit flat. They also faced a really good pitcher in Andrew Abbott. So Tuesday is fine. But Wednesday, last night, getting my days all confused at this point, but last night, I was really, really excited to see the team start off like they did and just continue to kind of tack on through the game. And Michael King, even though he, gave up some runs and he missed a few pitches, Michael King, to me, continues to make mistakes that he's learning from. And I think Michael King is getting better. And I think there's a lot to what Michael King has told us, is that being a full-time starter for a Major League Baseball team is a lot different than being a reliever in a bullpen. Because as a reliever, you never really know when you're going to go in. You can have some sort of idea. You can kind of quickly glance at who's going to be up when you're out there. But Michael King has, 4 days to get ready for his next start. And that's a whole different kind of feeling, I think. And he's still trying to adjust to that. And when you're a reliever, you have to stay ready every single day. So the routine is different. What he is studying before the game, the scouting is what I'm trying to say. The scouting is different because now he's looking at a team probably that they're not even playing anymore because he is looking at the next series. But he is trying to figure out what works best for him. And I think he's going to get better. He also has, I think that was his third quality start out of 4 starts in May. So Michael King is going to be okay, I think. And I think that his attitude on things really tells me that this guy is locked in, and this guy is willing to put in the work to be a great player. I mean, I was in the clubhouse that night after he pitched against the Dodgers, and he had, I think it was 11 strikeouts, and he ended up pitching, he even said it, the best of his career, the best start of his career. And just talking or hearing him talk after the game, you can see how much all this means to him. So I think Michael King is just going to continue to get better. And we kind of glossed over it just because it's not the first thing that we need to talk about, but taking 3 of 4 from the Braves after getting swept by the Rockies at home is huge. I mean, I don't know how many of us thought going into that series against the Braves, how many of us thought that it was going to be a 3-1 series win for the Padres. I did an Instagram live, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Matt Skraby. And I sometimes do Instagram lives from the dog park on Monday, Wednesday, or Fridays. But I said it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Padres go into Atlanta and take 3 of 4 or even sweep the series. And they had a chance to sweep the series, but they went up against Chris Sale. That's fine. They won those 3. And then they come to Cincinnati. What do? We just talked about it. They lost 2-0. But what did they do after that? They get 2 wins in a row. One of them extra inning win. And that is why I believe this team is a lot different. Because when things go bad for them right now, they haven't really, outside of that 5-game losing streak where the Phillies came to town and the Padres got swept by the Phillies at home. Ever since then, it seems like the team is, I don't want to say finding its level because we've talked about that a million times on this show or on Gwen and Chris. But what I'm seeing is responses. What I'm seeing is rebounding. And we're not talking basketball. We're talking about a tough loss to the Braves or to the Reds on Tuesday, even though they had chances, and they come back, they win 2 in a row. Those are the things that I was looking for going into this Red series. Not are they going to beat the Reds, because they should beat the Reds, but at the same time, I think the Padres bounce right back quicker than I think a lot of us think. Even though they can't put this win streak together, they can't get a 7-game win streak, they can't get a 9-game, 10-game win streak, but they can stop losing streaks quick. And I really believe that's a big part to a baseball team's regular season. Don't get into those losing streaks that have you lose 7, 8, 9 games in a row. I think not the Twins, can't remember which team. Maybe it was. I know the Twins were also winning a bunch in a row. It happens where teams go and they lose 7, 8, 9 games in a row. But if the Padres can stop that and not let these losses pile up, then they're going to be okay. And that's what they're doing this year. They're not allowing themselves to lose too many in a row. Again, the 5 in a row that they lost was, it was a part of the season, an early part of the season now that I'm looking back on it. But it did feel very important, those 5 losses in a row. But they got it under control. And here on this road trip, they win the first 3 games against the Braves. They lose 1. They actually lose 2 in a row, and then they get back on track with 2 wins. And if you look at their last 10, I know they're 5-5 because I get a bunch of DMs about that. This team's just 500. And right now, this team is just a 500 team. And I believe that they're going to show that they're a lot better just by the way that they've responded on the road. Now, they do have to really pick it up at home. They have to start winning at home. They're 17-10 on the road this year. They're 10-16. It was 10-16 at home. You cannot have an under 500 record at home and expect to be a comfortable playoff team. And I don't know what it is about playing at home. We talked about Jackson Merrill's splits. Jackson Merrill on the road, incredible. Jackson Merrill at home at the plate, not great. And as a guy who's never played professional baseball, I was trying to think this morning about how they can get more wins at home. And yes, the obvious answer is score more runs. But on the other side of that, it's like, why aren't they using the park to their advantage? Why, Luis Arraez has come here and he is looking for the spots on the field where he can get a hit. And I want to see more Padres do that. And maybe Luis Arraez at the top of the lineup doing that is going to make other guys do that as well. Look for the spots that they need to hit instead of swinging for the fences. I don't really necessarily think that this team this year has swung for the fences over getting the hit. They haven't been able to convert plenty of times, but that's going to happen in baseball. And, now that Xander Bogaerts is on the IL for 2 or so months, they're going to have to find more of a consistent. Believe me, I know Xander Bogaerts was not good at the plate, but what Xander Bogaerts was consistent, and he was always in the lineup. And so now you're going to have to kind of piece it together without Xander Bogaerts. And I know that some people say that Xander Bogaerts not being a part of this team, they're 2-0 without Xander. And I tweeted it. It's a big deal to lose him because of his consistency, because of his availability. Not to mention, Xander Bogaerts has proven that he is a great baseball player, and that can come back at any point. But it's too bad to see Xander Bogaerts have to go out for the next, 2 months. That's going to be tough to handle for the Padres. They're going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to get their bench guys to their bench veterans now, David Peralta, Donovan Solano. Those guys are going to have to be consistent, and they're going to have to be consistently good right out the gate. And so far they have been. I like the switch of Jake Cronenworth the second, Luis Arraez the first. I like that. Luis Arraez, he had a couple good plays at second, but I think Jake Cronenworth is a much better second baseman than Luis Arraez, so it makes sense for them to do that. And Luis Arraez is just down to get in to the game any way possible. DH or first base, second base, just put me out there. I don't know about you all, but Luis Arraez has been a very welcome breath of fresh air because I didn't know that he had so much personality, and that's because he's been playing on teams that aren't very good. I definitely did not know that he had so much personality, but he does have a lot of personality, and it's been fun to watch. All right, you're listening to the Skraby Show here on 97.3 The Fan. If you would like to watch us, you can on YouTube. Just type in 97.3 The Fan or go to Twitter at 97.3 The Fan SD. When we get back, we are going to talk to Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network, so stick around for that. And then later, I'm going to tell you why I'm still on this swinging at the first pitch thing. So over the last couple days, because I've had a little bit of extra time, I went through and tried to find out what other teams in baseball are doing. And also, Rob Manfred had a lot of announcements today about things in Major League Baseball's future. So Bart Winkler next. More on baseball's future later on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan. All right, back here on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks to everybody who is on the YouTube right now. You can just watch us on YouTube, 97.3 The Fan, or you can go to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at 97.3 The Fan SD. Always stumble over that Twitter. All right, our next guest you can hear on this very station, and I do listen to his show quite often as I'm getting things ready, closing things down for the day and driving home. But Bart Winkler from the Infinity Sports Network joins us on 97.3 The Fan. Bart, thank you so much for joining me here on the Skraby Show. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I stumble over that Twitter thing too, and then you kind of say the same, like Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Nobody wants to call it X is the thing. We want to call it Twitter, but idiot boy had to change it to a letter. So stupid.
It is really stupid, and I wish they would just go back to Twitter, because he spent a lot of time and money trying to get everybody to call it X, and no one cares about it. But we will continue, Bart, to call it Twitter and X until the end of time, I believe.
Yeah, it sucks, but it sucks.
It is what it is. All right, so I have to start with this, though, because during the NFL playoffs this year, I would finish my show and then close things up, and then I would turn on your show, and I would hear you besmirching the name of my team's quarterback, Brock Purdy, and the 49ers. So my question to you, Bart, what would Brock Purdy have to do to win you over?
I think that's a great question. I think part of my anti-Brock Purdy stance is counter to everybody's insane pro-Brock Purdy stance. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. I think that if he was on other teams, he may not be as good as he is, but he's on this team. I always use the comparison with Draymond Green. I think Draymond's Green. I think he's really good, but if he was drafted to any other team, would he be this good? Would he have been this impactful? And it's something that it's not just he's in a situation where people make him better, but he also has qualities that make everybody else better. And I feel like that's the same with Brock Purdy. I feel like that's a good situation for him to be in. Obviously in the playoffs now, my team is the Packers, so I saw Brock Purdy scrambling and winning and doing all that kind of stuff. I think he's good. I think what happens is the fact that he's making $0.85 also amplifies how good we paint him as. He's doing this at an $800,000 contract. Okay, do we want is this Brock Purdy worth $50 million? Once he starts making $55 million, is it the same thing? I don't know. So I think he's good. I hesitate on the greats, which he can get there, but I think the rush from Mr. Irrelevant to don't call him that anymore, he's an MVP now, was way too quick for my liking. And so if anything, that's what I argue a lot. I argue that when people think things are bad, I try to say, no, they're worse than they are, or they're not as bad. But usually I'm not arguing good and bad. I'm arguing bad and worse, or good and great. I really like to get into the minutia of that, and Brock Purdy got in the crosshairs all playoffs.
It's all good, Bart. We're talking to Bart Winkler here at Infinity Sports Network. Make sure you stay around after this show at 7 p.m. He takes over the station. It's all good. I have a lot of people in our audience that are feeling the same way about Brock Purdy that you do, so I get a lot of strays come my way during the football season.
You don't think he's an MVP?
No,
To put him in that discussion was absurd.
I think yes, it was absurd because he's not an MVP. I agree about that. He could be this year, but last year it was definitely Lamar Jackson's year. I just wish that Kyle Shanahan could get over the hump. But we're not talking about 49ers here. You did mention, which I could talk about all day. You did mention the Packers, and I know by listening to your show, you're a big Milwaukee Bucks guy. You come from Milwaukee, you're in Milwaukee. And this has been kind of a topic here in the last couple of days about national hosts, whether it be TV, whether it be game broadcasts, or ESPN's Get Up, whether or not it's acceptable for these hosts to be so open about their personal fandom. And I know that, like I said, you're a Milwaukee guy. You talk about the Bucks, you talk about the Packers, but not all about those teams. So, what is your philosophy as a national radio show host on talking about your own personal fandom?
I think that where I try to do it is I'm obviously a sports fan. So there was a long time when it was like, do these people even like sports? They couldn't even. No, I'm not a fan of the team. I'm a fan of the story.
Yeah.
The next beat writer that says that to me, I'm going to take his notepad and throw it in his face. I'm tired of hearing that line. But I think that it is okay. I don't. The last thing I want to do is be like, all right, it's 7:00 and now Bart Winkler show's on, and oh boy, we're on the San Diego station, and this guy's talking about the Packers, Brewers, and Bucks all day. Like, that's stupid. But I do root for my teams. I do have more knowledge about my teams, and I think where it comes up the most for me is when I try to relate something. When I try to relate something to something that I remember as a kid, or a situation like Jason Kidd's in the playoffs now and going very far and coaching very well with the Mavs, and he used to coach in Milwaukee. And so I've got a perspective on that I think is worth sharing. And I think it's fair to say, you know, when we followed him with the Bucks, instead of, I could do the other thing and just pretend to know everything about every team, which I don't, so I don't want to do that. I don't want to, but you know, I listen to other people too. I mean, and if it's too much, it's annoying. I understand that, but I do think it's fun to, like, oh, this guy likes that team, or this, you know, likes that team, and then I get people from Chicago calling the rip on me, or like San Francisco with the Niners. So it is, I like it. I don't think that you should hide from it, but I also think, like, you have to know, if you're on a national platform, not everyone you're talking to is of the same fan base that you are, and I think that's fine. Now, I think what ESPN's been doing with the Knicks,
I was
has
just
been
about to bring
a
it
little
up.
too much. I was going through the MVP votes today and the first team all NBA today, and Giannis got 88 first place votes, so he's on the first team. But he got 11 second place votes, and I went through it, and 5 of the people that voted him second team behind Jalen Brunson first team were ESPN, because ESPN's been on this super, like, New York Knicks thing. So then it's crossing over into awards, and that's getting weird. Like, I don't think it should do that, but I know I try to talk about everybody, listen to everybody. And we try to get some Padres in there. I know my girl Emily's listening, okay? and she likes to call about them on her late night route. So we try to get everything. I think, though, the big thing is, if you do it once and somebody doesn't like it, then they're going to have an ear for it. Like, I've had some people complain because the Open goes live from Milwaukee. Here's Bart Winkler, and people are like, "Oh, too much Milwaukee. What are you?" Okay, all right. We can all do better here, I think.
Yeah, we can agree on that. That sometimes, like, one thing is said on the show, and then all of a sudden it's the only thing you've ever said on a show ever, and people will never forget about that. But that is interesting about the Knicks and all of that, and Giannis and the Bucks. But I know we're jumping all over the place, but that's okay. That's what the Skraby Show is all about.
That's what you're gonna hear for the next 4 hours, so
Perfect.
It's perfect to blend right in.
Yes. But I've been saying the Bucks because they fired their head coach Adrian Griffin, and they fired him earlier in the year when they had a good record and they were winning. And now you may know more about the situation, but then they brought in Doc Rivers and they didn't do as well down the stretch. I feel like the Bucks are getting kind of a pass from the national media for making this decision. So now that I have you on the show and you got insider knowledge, is that a bad opinion for me to have?
Well, I feel the opposite. I feel like the national media has been very hard on the Bucks.
Okay.
Especially because the record when they first had Adrian Griffin was 30-13, and then they fired him for Doc Rivers, who's been a punchline in the NBA for the last 15 years. But I think what that shows is there is no tolerance for teams to lose their locker room anymore in the NBA. Like, right now, I use COVID as the benchmark. There are 5 coaches that are currently with their team that were still there before the shutdown of that season. There's been teams that have been recycling coaches. The Bucks have had a couple of coaches. Frank Vogel's had 2 different jobs he got fired from in that time with the Lakers and Suns. So there's a lot of movement, and you see that now in Cleveland, which we'll talk about tonight, with J.B. Bickerstaff getting fired, when he's had good success and good results. But if the team is not responding, doesn't matter what your record is. If the team is not responding and doesn't want to play for you, and that was kind of what the rumors were or the reporting was coming out of the locker room, was that they looked at this guy and they didn't respect him. They didn't have any accountability to him. Even though they respect Doc, they had a worse record. And we'll see what happens next year. But you have like no time. It's the days of, hey, we got to do this, coach says this. The days of that are long gone.
Mm-hmm.
If the players don't like the coach, they're not going to get new players. They're going to get the new coach. So that's a trend that we've seen. I always used to joke that like hockey was the sport that, you have a bad first week, you get fired. But basketball's really become that too as of late.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of sort of saw a player stand up to the team a little bit here in San Diego with Josh Hader when he was a closer last year, and it's just coming out now that he had, stipulations that he wouldn't pitch more than an inning and all that stuff. It seems like...
don't get me started on that idiot.
It seems like, don't worry, no one wants to talk about Josh Hader here in San Diego anymore with Robert Suarez as the closer of the team. But it just seems like, because when I get some people that tell me, well, Mike Schilt needs to tell them they're going to do this. And my response is, I don't think that works in this day and age. And so I'm not sure if maybe I'm not looking at it correctly or if that is just how some of the modern day athletes are.
I think the big change is obviously free agency, but the the largeness of the contracts has changed quite a bit too. And coaches will make more than they've been making. But in terms of the scale, you used to have players playing for, $1 million. And if they didn't like the situation, they couldn't leave. They could get traded, and coaches would hold that against them. I mean, Green Bay, thank goodness that the Packers started winning all those years. See, this is a relation, okay? I'm relating something here. I'm not talking about my fandom. I'm relating. But they used to threaten NFL players. We're going to trade you to Green Bay if you don't shape up here. And they'd be like, okay, coach. And the coach kind of had the power. And now the players have the power because they've got more money and they can also move and they can also sign a 5-year contract and then demand to be traded after 7 months. So there's just way more player empowerment, which is better for the players. But I don't know. I was thinking about a bunch of stuff today, like coaches get fired sooner and players leave sooner. And even in college, you lose guys to either the pros or now the transfer portal. It's like nobody's anywhere for more than 3 or 4 years. And it's hard to get attached to some of these guys because there's so much movement.
That's very, very true. We're talking to Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network. His show, it is about 28 minutes, so I'm going to let him go. But what do you got going on tonight on your show?
Well, at about 8 o'clock tonight, we will do the Bartometer, the weekly installment.
Yes.
Yeah, Bartometer. That's going to be tonight. Teams in the NBA, of the 26 eliminated teams, who's got the best chance to win the finals next year. We'll obviously be talking about the Pacers Celtics wrap up, get into some of this stuff with the NCAA, and schools can pay players now, I guess. I just saw the headline. Got to read that article.
It's very confusing. It's very confusing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, okay. All these guys. And you know what the most interesting thing about this is Aaron Taylor. He's on CBS College Game Day or whatever.
Yeah.
He went to Notre Dame. He the other day on TV was like, well, yeah, now it's out in the open. I mean, they used to pay. Like, now players are just outwardly saying, oh, yeah, we got paid. I mean, everybody assumed it and thought it and joked about it, but now it's like there's just freedom to say, oh, yeah, we got paid. I got a Corvette. My mom got a house. Like, it's a weird time we're in, man.
It is a very weird time. Very weird time. Well, I know you got now 27 minutes, not to count down or anything like that, so you might be getting a little nervous. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, Bart, for joining us here on the Skraby Show today on 97.3 The Fan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for helping me promote.
Yes.
And I'll talk to you guys in a half hour.
All right. That was Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network. Like you said, he's on in about a half hour. I listened to that show as I'm leaving, and if you like this show, if you like Win and Chris, you're going to like Bart Winkler's show. He does talk a little bit more NBA, but that is more of a national subject. And I do hear from time to time people calling in on the station, which from San Diego, which is always a good thing to hear. Whenever I hear people call in and say I'm from San Diego, I listen up to see if I know who that person is. So, all right. Thank you, Bart Winkler. When we get back, final segment of the Skraby Show. I'm going to, for further proof there is no way to predict what this Padres team is going to do, I'm going to bring up a few stats, and we will also talk about these robot home plate umpires and things for 2025, according to Rob Manfred, here on 97.3 The Fan. Thanks again to Bart Winkler for joining the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan. His show coming up right after this one. Glad I got my Brock Purdy question in. Couldn't tell you how I would sit here and listen to everybody talk trash about Brock Purdy and not be able to say anything back. It was very difficult. I am Matt Skraby. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, at Matt Skraby, MattsKraby, as in boy, Y. I'm also trying to get on this Discord thing. Discord, not Discord. And it's not just a thing. It's like a place where people go to have conversations and stuff. So I did start that. I believe my name is also Matt Skraby on the Discord. So I know that some people were looking for that, trying to do that. Also, I have been talking about t-shirts for a really, really long time, and I finally have been able to make these t-shirts, or at least get the process started. So it's a Skrabinator t-shirt, and what it is, you're going to be able to donate. You pay for the t-shirt, and then you donate money towards starting an organization that's going to help people with alcohol addiction, which is close to my heart, as most of you know. I have not drank in over 7 years, and I, had a really tough time with alcohol addiction leading up to it, and I'm on the other side of it now. I'm sitting right here, and I really want to be able to give back to people, and I want people to know that they're not alone, because honestly, when I was at the end of my drinking days, I really felt like I didn't have anything in common with anyone, which wasn't true. It really, really wasn't true, because there are plenty of rooms full of people who have issues with drinking and drugs and things of that nature, substances, and they, are the same. It was refreshing. So if you're sitting there right now and you're like, man, I got no one that understands me. Well, and you're hearing me, I understand you. All those people in those AA rooms understand you as well. So just, I can tell you, when I went to one of my first few AA meetings, it was one of the best things for me, because I realized all of these people are telling their worst stories of their life. This guy just lost his wife over here because he was a drinker and she didn't want to deal with it anymore, and he's making jokes about it, which is kind of the way we deal with things. But I am really excited for this Skrabinator shirts, and I'm excited about what happens going forward. So you can go to my Twitter at Matt Skraby. It's the link is in the bio. You can also go to my Instagram. The link is in the bio as well. And you can also hit me up on DM if you want, if you can't find the link. So couple of different options for you out there to donate. And I'm not saying by any means anyone has to spend any money. Like, I'm not saying please run there right now and make sure they get all the money. I just want people who want to go there, who want to contribute to it towards, you think I could talk, towards a good cause, which is this. And I know that there are a lot of different people on the chat that are living the good life like I am, or fighting the good fight, whichever way you want to talk about it. It's good stuff. All right, so let's go. Someone on the chat, I'm not going to say, it's crazy how almost every story in AA is the same. It's true. To me, without spending too much time on it, it all comes down to one thing, and that's that substance took over your life. But even though the stories are all different, and some may be bigger stories than other stories, at the root of it, it's all the same. And that's why I love AA, because no matter what mood I'm in when I go into it, there are going to be stories that I hear that are going to make me feel good about where I am in life. Anthony said it. He said he had no anonymity. Jack says, would have been cool to have a beer with 2011 Skraby. No, you wouldn't want 2011 Skraby. Maybe 2006 Skraby. Maybe 2007 Skraby. 2011 Skraby. I don't know about that one. I don't know that I would be the best person to have a beer with in 2011. But, like I said, right after I turned 21 or something, that would be cool. I just saw this thing on on Twitter, and I know we're going to talk about the Padres, and we will. But I haven't even listened to this audio. Awful Announcing tweeted out and says, Michael Wilbon says Major League Baseball exit velocity tracking has started the ruination of sports for me. And I don't really, I can't get into it. So here's what Michael Wilbon said.
Not only is it no deal, it angers. And in talking about this and thinking about it, and I'm glad we're doing this topic, Tony. So let me ask you something. The velo, the exit velo, does it mean he's a better hitter than Tony Gwynn, who might have dribbled the field through the infield in his day and hit about 330 career and flirted with 400 once? Meaning a better hitter than him? And so what? So what? He's a 260 hitter. So why do I give a damn about the exit velo? I don't. Mm-hmm. And so I guess people need this, Tony, to become interested and more fascinated. And they go, oh, wow. Not only do I not go, oh, wow, it has started the ruination of watching sports for me. Numbers like this repeatedly and put up on the screen day in, day out. It has ruined it because people aren't concentrating on the fact that he is 260 instead of 330. They're concentrating on exit velo. That's just me. You're older than me and more crotchety than me, at least you used to be. How you feeling about it?
I like how they ended that. Tony Kornheiser's just sitting there with his glasses on his chin. You're older than me. You used to be, or at least used to be, more crotchety than me. That's funny. I'm gonna have to use that for Chris one of these days. I have said on the show before that I don't necessarily like analytics stats. I don't really like stats that are based off of like ballpark. I don't even know the word I'm looking for. Ballpark features, or I don't know, ballpark playability. Those are all like, that's fake to me. You cannot measure how a ballpark plays. But exit velocity does tell me something. Exit velocity tells me how well a ball is being hit. And it's not everything. And batting average, I still like to look at a batting average. I still look at that batting average and see what they're doing for the year, but I also like to look at their exit velocity. We've even talked about it on this show. Exit velocity for Manny has been there. He's been hitting the ball, as they say, on the screws, and he just hasn't gotten the hits to show for it. But that does tell me something. Exit velocity, I understand why people are chasing it, and the reason they're talking about O'Neal Cruz is because he hit some of the two hardest baseballs ever hit. I think both of them were over 120 miles an hour, or if one of them wasn't, they were in the 119 miles an hour. And he's hitting 260, which is actually not bad for a guy of his ilk right now. Hitting 260, I don't think that's that bad. But what it tells me, the exit velocity, if Manny Machado goes up there and he's got an average exit velocity of like 65 miles an hour, tells me he's not seeing the ball well. It tells me that he's not hitting the ball well. It tells me that he's just not a good hitter at the moment. But if you see that his average exit velocity is in the 80s, or even if it's like ranking in the top 50 of baseball or top 100 in baseball's top 75, we'll say, it tells me that he's hitting the ball well. He's seeing the ball well. He's making good swings. Things that I guess I wouldn't know by average, because average isn't telling me how well he has contacted the ball. So I really am thinking, and I get about why Michael Wilbon is saying this. He's from a different generation, which is fine. I mean, Chris probably feels the same way, and I think he's even said as much, that he's not a big fan of exit velocity. And I think it's cool. I just want to know. I play MLB The Show a lot, so every time if I hit a ball in MLB The Show and it looks like it may be a home run, but I'm not sure, I look down at the exit velocity, and if it's the right exit velocity, then I know it's going to be gone. All right. Let's see. The chat has turned into a lot of different things. But we're going to talk about the Padres real quick, because further proof that there is no way to predict this team is right here, plain as day, in front of me. So, swinging first strike across baseball. I wasn't really sure when I went into this little deep dive or mini dive. I wasn't really sure how other teams in baseball are doing on the first pitch. And so I went to MLB.com, went to the stats page, and I looked and saw what other teams are doing. And it surprised me because it does not seem like the Padres are doing what they're doing on the first pitch. So they rank 10th right now in baseball, hitting .348 on the first pitch, which really surprises me. They've hit 12 home runs, 57 RBIs. Their OPS is .898. Their slugging is .545. So I didn't realize that the Padres were hitting so well on the first pitch. Number one team in baseball right now, Yankees, .393 they're hitting. OPS 1.136. Braves are in second. Now here's even a crazier thing, more crazy aspect to this. Only 6 teams are not 300 or better on the first strike. And those teams, is it 6 teams? Did it change? Because some of these may have changed because they've played games today. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams now. It starts with the Diamondbacks at 299, Cardinals 299, and then it goes down to the Guardians at 261, which is strange to me because the Guardians are one of the better teams in baseball, and they only hit 261 on the first pitch. So my conclusion: swinging at the first pitch is not as bad as I thought. And I've already done this once this year. And I already proved to myself once this year, swinging at the first pitch is not as bad as I thought. And so, as much as I guess there's also situational swinging at the first pitch. Like the infamous first pitch from a few weeks ago when Manny swung at it against the Rockies and ended up grounding into a double play to end the game. He swung at that first pitch. But think about it. If we're looking at the stats, 35% of the time the Padres are getting on base. And that is a good enough that's a good enough number for me to have them continue swinging first pitch. Not that they really need my man, coming to the end of the day, haven't worked in a couple days. Not that they need my approval is what I'm trying to say. Jeez. It's been crazy today. All right. Daily Gripe. I can't believe this hour went so quick. Thank you to everyone for being with me. Here is the finish to the show whenever I find this.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Annabelle asked, at what rate are the Padres swinging on the first pitch versus other teams? I tried to look for that, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I'm going to have to find that too. And it's probably going to prove to me again that swing at the first pitch is okay. All right, the Daily Gripe is this. And it has to do with me driving. I'm sorry, everybody. I try real hard not to be a crazy person. I do. But you get me rushed somewhere and you get me held up by something and I get a little panicky. So today, I'm driving my usual way to work. There was road work where, you needed to stop and then they would let people through and then they would let the other side through and it would be only using one lane, things of that nature. Well, the sign also said no bicyclists. No bicyclists allowed. Waited for 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Yes, I know this is not that big of a deal in the scheme of things. That's why it's the Daily Gripe, because this is where I get it out and I move on with my life. But I waited about 5 to 7 minutes for about a group of 25 bicyclists, riding up a hill as slow as humanly possible. And it said no bikes. Why are they riding bikes up a hill where it says no bikes? And now I have to wait 7 minutes for all these people. And then you got the stragglers at the end who can't make it up the hill because they're not in good enough shape. So they have to walk up their bike. Ugh. Really, really angers me. And the only reason it angers me is because the bicyclists do not care about people on the road. They only care about their bicycling. It's through my pen. Junior says, I can feel the anger building in you. Anthony says, maybe Skraby shouldn't be on the road. Oof, might be right. Junior says, get him, Skraby. And McKee says, cyclist equals Satan. Diesel says, I honk at bikers. I would if I could. All right, that's it. Thanks to everybody who's joined me. Go to my Twitter, Instagram, Matt Skraby. Look at those shirts. The link is in the bio. But have a good night. Join us at Spiro's tomorrow in Coronado. We're going to be broadcasting live from Spiro's. It's starting at 2 p.m. on 97.3 The Fan.
Time for baseball.